Hello and welcome to Evolution Now. I'm your host, Flora White, and I am so excited to launch this new show where we're going to talk to a variety of professionals and people across industries, from politics to entertainment to business and beyond. We're going to hear what gets them up in the morning and what tips, tricks, hacks, and mindset shifts they're implementing to find success in their respective fields. Today, it is my privilege and honor to introduce our county executive, mine and yours, Westchester County Executive Ken Jenkins, to talk through his evolution now. Ken, it is a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm proud to be here with you.
You've had a dynamic career for over 20 years in technology with companies like Verizon, Apple, decades of public service here in Westchester. You've served as chairman of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, deputy county executive, and now county executive. Along the way, you've led in community organizations, including the Yonkers NAACP, and you've spoken truth to power when it wasn't popular. You follow your heart, you follow your mission, values, and purpose, which is what we are about here on this show. And with so many paths you could have taken, what ultimately inspired you, sir, to dedicate your career to public service in Westchester County?
Well, it was a combination, certainly, having a mom that was a nurse and a father that was a cop. Those were already in public service. My grandmother served as the secretary for Rikers Island. My other grandmother worked for what is now Housing and Preservation and Development in New York City. So she was a social worker. We've had a base from what my family's values were to be able to do public service. So that was ingrained in me to be engaged in public service. So obviously we have careers that we do, certainly whether it was Accenture or New York Telephone, they turned into 9X, and now as people know as Verizon, then doing those career works there and being able to do that to make money and have the things that we need to do from a family perspective, and then marrying that with the advocacy and working in the community, and whether that was with the Yonkers NAACP or any of the organizations that I've been engaged with, I think those things are on a parallel track. So all the time, no matter where I was still involved in activism and continuing to do that work. And in the roles that I've been able to have, whether it was on the Board of Legislators, and whether it's serving as the chair of the Board of Legislators, which I was privileged to do for 4 years, or serving in the Latimer administration as deputy county executive for 7 years, and now I'm serving as county executive for Westchester County. I look at it every day to be able to look and say how we can make a difference. And all of those pieces come together from the activism, working in local organizations, being a person in the community, and being well-grounded. So.
There's so much to unpack there, and thank you for your answer. I mean, it sounds like your history and your family tradition is rooted in public service, and so for you it came naturally. But you started in technology, is that right?
So I actually started in New York Telephone as a directory assistance operator, and then I became a manager when I was 19 years old. So I'm going down a particular path. I was always interested in technology, and in school, being in the old days, you had to have a lot of math things going on because computers were just big calculators at that particular point in time with zeros and ones and doing that kind of thing. And then I went on that career path in New York Telephone, working in the Computer Technology Learning Center, doing programming and that kind of thing. My degree from Iona University now is in computer science and information systems. So again, that career path, working for Accenture, and I did some work for Western Union at a particular point in time when we were doing some background work, and certainly working in technology. So for me, it's always been an opportunity to decipher the challenges in technology and present that to people in a normal way. And the time that I spent at Apple would be able to show that kind of work. So again, being able to take a group of people, being able to solve different problems, and be able to move that forward and do that and explain it in a way that was common sense, just worked perfectly in the public service career.
Well, that is so timely and relevant to where we are now, with technology being so important in everything that we do. It's ingrained in the fabric of all aspects of our lives. Mm-hmm. So do you have a unique lens? Do you look at things from a technological perspective, from a continual improvement perspective? How does your expertise in technology inform your path forward and the way you look at the future?
Well, and that's a great question because, again, what technology does from my perspective, and a lot of this happened along the years to understand it, it's like, listen, technology is not the answer to everything. It can help support the things, but the best technology are the people and the time that you invest in people. And one of the things that, from my particular perspective, I feel strongly about that building relationships with people and understanding the ways to get things done, and then having technology support that is the best path. So again, the most effective resource that we have anywhere is the investments that we make in the people and relationships that we have. And that's been, the secret sauce, at least from my perspective, to be able to be successful in all the things that we've been able to do over the careers, and whether that's in the private sector or in the public sector, all of those relationships is what makes a difference. When you can pick up the phone to be able to listen to a concern and be able to call someone and say, well, I have this particular scenario. How do you think we can approach it, and come up with solutions as well? So first listening, understanding what an issue is, and then being able to address the concerns. Again, I think they all come together that way.
I couldn't agree more. I know that a lot of people are afraid of AI. They talk about what AI can do for us. There's a saying in Silicon Valley, either you're going to work for AI or it's going to work for you, one or the other. What's your opinion about AI and the benefits or the pitfalls?
Well, when I started out in technology, we also had a term garbage in, garbage out. So again, when you think about this, when you talk about the advantages in AI, that with artificial intelligence, that you say, well, what does that really mean? And what it really means is that people don't understand that there's just repetitious things that we do all the time. So if A happens, then we're going to do B. And that's all AI is. It can get really complicated on top of that. And there's some things now that get generated by AI. You go, wow, besides the cute little things when you put a baby face on somebody else, and then with adult activities and voices, etc. But to be able to do the normal things that we think and we take for granted, and those things can be repetitious. So for a government perspective, especially in places like Greenburgh, in our largest town in Westchester County, if you think about conditions like flooding and that kind of thing, how does artificial intelligence say, all right, well, if this particular area floods all the time, if we have this amount of rain, well, what's going to happen? Well, that's all AI is from an artificial intelligence perspective, to be able to preemptively think about something and say, all right, how can we address a concern? And it can be utilized in good and obviously bad ways as well. So again, with any advancement, there's always a benefit, but there's always a cost, and there's always people that are trying to utilize it to their advantage. So again, I think people shouldn't be afraid of those things. People don't realize how much things are built into all of the normal things we do, whether it's the refrigerator, right, in our house, or whether it's a washer or a dryer. There is some AI in there that says, if you're doing this kind of thing, then this is how the appliance should act. So when you push the little button and say, we're going to have delicates in our dryer, and it sets the temperature and it says how long that should be with sensors, etc., that's all artificial intelligence. So people can make it super complicated and scary, or we can do what I like to do is simplify it and make it seem normal and say, all right, well, that's what this is doing. Is that going to take over your complete life? I don't think so, but we saw Space Odyssey 2001 where the machines took over, and there's always that scariness that movies have done for us and put some scare into us. I think we got to decipher that, make it more real for people every day. And again, what can that be? How can that be utilized in my government work? And how can you utilize that in a regular everyday scenario?
You have a history of public service, as we talked about, from grassroots efforts with the NAACP in your community, to now serving as county executive of Westchester County. You're the first Black county executive here in Westchester, and it is my privilege to get to interview you and talk with you today. What has that journey been like? Can you share with me a bit about that journey?
Well, something, I think first, as the first Black county executive in Westchester and the first Democrat Black county executive in New York State history, I think that people, when you put that kind of framework on it, people see how far things have come and see still how much further we have to go. And for me personally, I feel I'm honored and humbled that the people of Westchester elected me in February to be the county executive, and I'm going to continue to do this hard work that we continue to push forward with. I'm not just trying to make history. We're always trying to make a difference, right? So it's not about making, just making history. It's always about making a difference. And what I've been able to do by having the relationships, by building the work that we've done from a grassroots community perspective, through government service, through private sector, being able to merge all of those kind of things together and understand how can we do the best we can with the resources that we're given to be able to do a good job. So again, I don't look at it first and saying, "Oh, yeah, it's the first." A lot of times, as a woman, you see things. You're the first to do something, right? And we can do different categories. It's like that could be scary, and it could be hard and tough. And a lot of times, people may not take the time to look backwards and say, "You know what? The journey that it took to get to that place." I know I stood on a lot of shoulders to be where I am, right? And whether those shoulders are great people that we had here, Eddie Mae Barnes here, and Lois Bronze in Greenberg, and all kinds of folks that watched you over the way, and the people that are still here with us that are continuing to push and support and be able to look out and support the work that we're doing. I think that's the challenge of the world today, right? The challenge of our world today is that we have a world in our federal government, at least, where people are trying to remake history and change history. And the challenges for all of us right now is to be able to continue to tell these stories, to be able to show, as we're going into the 250th year of America, so we're doing all of our revolutionary history that we're trying to do and push forward with that. There's good and there's bad. And what I always like to say, and you've heard me say this in many times, especially when we talk during history, it's like, hey, wait, American history is complicated, right? So, and it doesn't mean that it's someone's going to be at fault where we are today. What history is for us to look back and say, how can we not make the same mistakes that we made in the past? And how can we do and make improvements for the future in search of what we have in the United States, in search of a more perfect union? So we know we don't have it right. We know that it's a search to continue to do this, but by working together, we get a chance to make a difference. So for me, when I get a chance to go around the county, everyone feels strongly and proud to, first just to show up and talk to different people and understand that the work that we're doing is important, but it's for everyone. And for Westchester, we have so many different areas where we have different needs. So, it's more rural, and we know Westchester's not upstate.
Ooh, let me ask you this. And that ties into what you're saying. So what's the biggest challenge of leading? Can I say leading?
Sure.
What's the biggest challenge of leading a county of over 1 million people where there are so many different demographics and so many different needs?
Well, that's one of the benefits of a place like Westchester. We feel that we're so blessed to be here in Westchester County. We are a unicorn as far as I'm concerned. We look around and we can see different counties that are similar size in New York State. We have the blessings of people that have resources, right? We have some of the wealthiest people in the country that live here in Westchester County, and we have certainly people that have needs in Westchester County, and we have to work through that so that everyone feels that their voices are getting heard. And that's not like a trick or anything like that. It takes time, energy, and effort, and we happen to have a fantastic team at the county that's been able to do that. But we already had foundation laid, with the 9th County Executive, the 16th Congressional Congressperson, George Latimer. We laid a foundation, and we have a fantastic team that's been working basically together for the last 8 years to do this. But Westchester has those abundance of riches, if you will, with economic development, proximity to New York City, being able to have all the kinds of different economic development, education, and housing opportunities. There's all that mix here in Westchester County. And what my job is to make sure that we're continuing to move forward and leave the place better than when we found it. And that's always what everyone's goal is, no matter what side of the aisle they happen to be on. And I think that the challenge for us right now is to continue to manage with stability, competence, and civility. And that's the tenets, under my administration that we continue to do, that no matter what noise is happening at the federal and national and international levels, that we're going to try to do our best to work together with people to make sure we're moving forward and being able to address concerns. And again, those concerns can be as simple as, all right, how do we get this roadway fixed? Even when it's not our road, for the county perspective, working with our partners at the local, state, and federal levels to make sure that we're getting things done. That's the challenge, and guess what? We're up to it, and again, we have a great group of people that surround us to make that happen.
That's beautiful. So Ken, what is your morning routine? Can you give us any insights into what you do to maintain balance?
Well, first, it is important to have that balance, right? And one of the things that I had the privilege of doing is, since I spent so much time on News 12 and doing that in my volunteer work with Mike Edelman, I spent almost 9 years, almost 10 years, being on point, counterpointing, being able to do that. So I had high visibility, and almost all the roles that I've had locally, I've been a leader in that. So while I might have started at the ground floor, I was president of NACP, I was president of the Yonkers Community Action Program. I mean, there's a lot of things I was engaged in charge of. So one of those things helps is balance. And no one gives you greater balance than your children, right? At the end of the day, I'm just dad, right? So I'm trying to make sure to keep that balance. So for my day, it starts somewhere between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, every morning. And I hit the treadmill or the bike, one of the two of those that I do every day. I think I got a year streak going on my little app, right? And continue to do that. And then, we'll start off the day, and usually we'll go out to breakfast with someone. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And then, sit and go through the day. So my hack is the exercise every day. Then I'm watching the news and seeing what things are happening, and then we're handling our business and moving forward. From a daily perspective, I look at the priority list of projects that I have, and some people might go in the Covey world and do those important things and put them into categories and be able to deal with it. But that's the way that I work. I look at my little list and then be able to continue to follow up. I am really good at getting back to people. Not as quickly as they like a lot of times, but to try to make sure to get back to people and do that. And that answer is not always yes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's no, and sometimes it's like, let me get back to you. But we'll work really hard with our relationships to actually get things done.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Any advice for people who serve in public leadership positions, things to do, things to not do?
Well, I would say this, not whether they're in public office or if this is just private, doesn't matter what it is. One of the things that I feel strongly that you should never do is never make up stuff when you don't have the answer. If you don't have the answer, it's okay to say, I don't have the answer, let me check that out. The other part is to try to listen to people, take a step back, because most of us have a focus and want to push and want to move forward in a certain way. It's like, listen, the people put you in a particular position, and whether that's an organization, whether a nonprofit organization, a club or whatever, or in your business, it's like, you're in a role, how do you operate in that role? What are your responsibilities in that role? And then being able to execute through that. And again, yes, the best answer is always yes. Everyone tells us that. It's like, oh yes, I would love for you to say yes. But the second best answer is no, because no helps you to get to yes. And sometimes it says, all right, what do we have to do and make adjustments? So for those folks that decide they want to choose to be in this public service world, the first thing to do is to start by listening to the concerns of the individuals that are around you. And if that's a local town, a village, a hamlet, and you're running for office, you're seeking to be on a board like the planning board, et cetera, get engaged in that way. But you're listening first, and then you're going to be able to say, all right, how do we work through this together? And again, sometimes it's going to be a challenge. Sometimes it's going to be a really hard hill, and that's okay. And everyone's not going to be successful in doing that kind of thing. I would like to tell people again, if you've been in relationships with folks doing different things or different groups of people, and that person and that group's been with you 70, 80% of the time, you got to give them the grace when they're not with you, right? No one is 100% online with someone else all the time. I always like to tell the story about being married now, 43 years.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. So 43 years. I'm pretty sure we might have had some disagreements along the way. But that does not mean that we love each other any less. And it doesn't mean that we're not catching everyone's back. So we have to give, in this particular time, we need to give people a lot more grace when they've been with us and be able to not try to convince them of your point of view, but to listen to them and try to understand their point of view. And that's what we've been successful with from a Westchester perspective for all of these years, which is why no matter where we are from a political perspective outside of Westchester, we've been able to move forward and get stuff done, because that's what we're focused on, is getting things done. And when I don't agree with someone necessarily, I work even harder to try to understand their point of view, because that is what makes a difference for all of us.
Well, I thank you again so much, County Executive Ken Jenkins.
Something, I'm glad to be here again on the show, and we're going to keep working this and supporting the work that you're doing, because it's so important. As you were mentioning, this is going to get an opportunity to bring different folks in and have a point of view, and again, talking about the work that you're doing. It's fantastic.
Thank you. And will you come back in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
No, I'm not coming back. All right? It's like, no. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you like what you saw, we're going to be here every single week with a new guest, having candid conversations, getting great new insights. So who should I talk to next? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time on Evolution Now.